Pisces, I have a really interesting reading for you today, and I have to tell you, I actually put these cards down earlier and walked away from them because I knew there was something here, but I couldn't quite get the pieces to lock together, and sometimes that happens. Sometimes a reading isn't unclear because the cards aren't speaking. Sometimes there's a piece of understanding that hasn't arrived yet, and now it has. So I want to show you the way these cards are laid out, because the layout itself is part of the message. Across the top, I have the Two of Cups, and this deck gives the word partnership. Then I have the Seven of Wands, challenges, the Seven of Pentacles, vision, and finally the Eight of Pentacles, dedication. Underneath those, almost sitting in the space between them, I have the three sword cards. The Seven of Swords reverse with the word theft, the Three of Swords, heartache, and the Six of Swords, resolution. And immediately there are a couple of things here that I want you to notice. First, look at the colors. The Two of Cups is blue, it's calm, it's harmonious, it's partnership. Then right beside it, the Seven of Wands is the fiery red-orange card. It is the only card in this entire table that is really shouting. Look at it. It's like, rare, I'm here, right? Everything else is sitting there quietly. Partnership, vision, dedication. Heartache even is visually quieter. Resolution is quieter. But challenges, screaming. And I think that's important because sometimes the loudest thing in your life is the problem. And because it is loud, you can start believing is the whole story. It isn't. There's an entire table sitting around that challenge. So let's start with the Two of Cups. I don't think this is simply a relationship card here. This is harmony. It's the yin and yang of something. It can absolutely be another person, but it can also be a way of doing something, a system, a partnership with yourself, your work, your life, something that has found a rhythm, something fits, something has compatibility, something works together well, and then right beside it comes challenges. So now something that was working meets resistance. And underneath those two cards, I have the Seven of Swords reversed, theft. Now, I really like the fact that this card is reversed because it almost feels like the reversal is asking us to overturn the interpretation itself. Because when something that used to work suddenly becomes difficult, what do we often do? We read the difficulty as loss. Something's been taken, something's wrong, something's gone, something that used to be mine isn't mine anymore. And that may not actually be what is happening. Something could simply be harder to access. Something could need adjustment. Something could have changed enough that you need to understand it differently. This is not the same thing as theft. And visually, the Seven of Swords is fascinating here because the swords, they're pointing upward towards the Two of Cups and the Seven of Wands. It actually creates this upside down triangle. And that's how this entire reading started coming in for me. These little triangles like this. Okay? This is the way they were coming in. Two cards above, one card underneath. Showing me how those energies are interacting. So partnership and challenges meet, and underneath them is theft. That's the perception. Something that once harmonized hits difficulty, and the mind immediately goes, something has been taken from me. But what if the challenge itself isn't proof of loss? What if it's simply showing you where something no longer fits the way it used to? That takes us into the next triangle. Seven of Wands, challenges, and Seven of Pentacles, vision. And underneath them, Three of Swords, heartache. This one is incredibly clear to me. You know what you can see. You have a vision. You know what you want something to become. You can almost see the finished version, and then the challenges standing between you and that vision feel so large that your heart starts breaking over the distance between where you are and where you thought you would be. This is such a human thing, right, for us? You can see what something could be. You know what it has been. You know what you want. And then reality does not immediately meet the vision. So the mind goes from, this is difficult, to I'm losing this, to maybe it isn't going to happen. And now we have heartache. And look at the Three of Swords itself. The swords create that triangle again. See? That. Yes, it does. It's almost as though this deck is physically pointing out the structure of the reading. Look at these three together. Challenge, vision, heartache. The challenge doesn't seem to meet vision, and the gap hurts. But I don't think the cards are saying the vision is wrong. I think they're saying there's a gap in understanding. And this is where the bottom row becomes really interesting, because every one of those bottom cards are swords. The entire processing layer of this reading is mental. The top row is what's happening, partnership, challenge, vision, dedication. The bottom row is what the mind does with what is happening, theft, heartache, resolution, same suit. Three completely different ways of experiencing the situation. And swords are often treated like the terrible cards of tarot. Everyone sees swords as goes, oh no. But swords are thought, perception, interpretation, understanding. And sometimes the problem is not simply what's happening. Sometimes the problem is the story we immediately attach to what is happening. If I experience challenge and tell myself something has been taken from me, I'm going to experience that challenge very differently than if I say, okay, something's off. Why? Where's the dissonance? What isn't matching anymore? What piece am I missing? That doesn't mean you pretend the challenge doesn't hurt. The Three of Swords is sitting right there. Sometimes the gap between what you hope for and what you're actually experiencing really does hurt. But heartache doesn't necessarily mean stop. It can mean look closer. And then we come to the final triangle. The Seven of Pentacles, the Eight of Pentacles, dedication, vision, dedication, and underneath them, Six of Swords, resolution. I love this. Because vision alone doesn't move you. You can see something beautiful. You can know what you want. You can imagine what's possible. But then comes dedication, Eight of Pentacles. Now you work what's actually here. You learn, you adjust, you notice the gap. You ask better questions. You stop saying, why isn't this what I expected? Long enough to ask, what is this showing me? And that's when the Six of Swords becomes resolution. Usually we read the Six of Swords as leaving something difficult behind, moving away, transitioning because the old place was painful, and that can absolutely be part of it. But here, I think it's subtler. Resolution is what actually creates the movement. You understand enough that you can move. You transition. The transition happens because perception changes. You stop fighting the fact that something feels dissonant and start letting the dissonance show you where the resonance is. That may be the heart of this entire reading. You can stay stuck in dissonance, or you can let the dissonance lead you into resonance. Something feeling wrong is information. Something not matching is information. Something rubbing against you is information. Instead of immediately deciding it means failure, loss, rejection, or the end of something, ask, what is this showing me? What part doesn't fit? What has changed? What is missing? What am I assuming? What needs to be understood differently? Because when you find that missing piece, suddenly the thing that looked like an ending can become a bridge. And I have to talk about these numbers because we have 3 sevens here. 7 of Wands, 7 of Pentacles, 7 of Swords. 3 sevens. 7 is such an examining number to me in this spread. It feels like assessment. Pause. Look again. Don't rush to conclusion. And if I take the 2 upright sevens here, challenge and vision, 7 plus 7 gives me 14, which reduces to 5. 5 is friction. Change, movement. Something that interrupts the stable pattern. That is exactly what is happening between challenges and vision. The challenge is rubbing against what you thought you saw, and that friction is uncomfortable. But friction can create movement. Then all 3 sevens together give us 21. 2 plus 1 gives us 3, and 3 creates. 3 takes separate pieces and makes something new out of them. So these 3 sevens aren't just repeating the same problem, they're creating something for you to see. Look. Look again. Look from another angle. Bounce off it. Question it. And then we arrive at the Eight of Pentacles, dedication. That's our 8 again, okay? If you haven't been looking at my other channel, 8 this week became very important. It's been showing up in all the readings for the past week in this channel and at Pisces Tarot if you want to check that out. And I love the word on this card because after all that examining, dedication says, now do something with what you've learned. Don't just notice the pattern, work with it. Don't just see the gap, bridge it. And the Pentacles are grounding this whole thing beautifully because we go from all of this thought and emotional interpretation into something practical. Vision and dedication are both Pentacles. See what you're building, then build it. The challenge may be loud. The challenge may scare you. It may convince you for a while that something valuable has disappeared. It may even break your heart because that's what is happening doesn't look like what you thought was possible. But look at the rest of this table. Partnership still here. Vision still here. Dedication and resolution still here. The loudest card is not necessarily the most powerful card. It is simply the card demanding your attention. So Pisces, if something in your life feels off right now, I don't think this reading is asking you to immediately fix it. I think it's asking you to become curious about the dissonance. Where exactly does it stop resonating? What changed? What are you calling loss that may actually be adjustment? Where is the challenge rubbing against the vision? And what would happen if instead of deciding the gap means the vision is impossible, you let the gap teach you something instead? Because sometimes the thing that hurts is also the thing pointing directly towards what you need your attention. And once you understand that, the Six of Swords says you can move, right? Once you understand that, you're not trapped in the challenge. You're not trapped in the heartache. You're not even trapped in your first interpretation of what happened. You can change your relationship to it. You can find the missing piece and you can move forward differently. Sometimes dissonance isn't the end of resonance. Sometimes dissonance is how you find your way back to it. And that's where I'm going to leave this one and this week. Pisces, I do have a Patreon that you can go to where I do little cheat sheet readings for the energies ahead for the week. It's posted on Sunday. You can find that on my other channel. It's in the description box at Pisces Tarot. Thank you so much for being part of this channel. And if you're interested in a reading, that's going to be in the comment below. I will see you on Monday. Bye for now.